Yo, listen to me. You're not tired because you're working hard. You're tired because you're carrying stuff you were never built to carry. You're exhausted because you keep trying to do God's job with man's strength. Let me say it louder. You're not God. Stop trying to be. You're not tired because you're lazy. You're not tired because you're weak. You're tired because you're operating asterisk asterisk, out of position asterisk asterisk. You've taken on responsibilities and burdens that were never assigned to you. You're trying to carry something that's not yours to carry. You're stepping into a role that belongs to someone infinitely greater, and that someone is God. Too often, we confuse hard work with control. We grind, we hustle, we take pride in doing it all. But what we fail to see is that sometimes we're not being strong, we're being stubborn. There's a difference between working in alignment with God's will and working in resistance to it. And when you're operating outside your spiritual assignment, you'll feel it in your body, your mind, and your soul. Think about it. You're making decisions for people who don't listen, trying to fix situations that keep breaking, losing sleep over problems that aren't even yours to solve. That's not strength, that's misalignment. You've stepped out of the place of trust and into the place of control. And that's why you're exhausted. You're functioning like you're God. You're trying to be the source when you are only meant to be a vessel. Let me break it down. There is a divine order to life. God gives us roles, responsibilities, and boundaries. And when we stay within that design, things flow. You still work hard, but it's different. Your work is powered by peace, not pressure. You still face challenges, but you're not crushed by them because you know who's truly in control. But when you step out of your lane, when you move from obedience to overreach, that's when burnout hits. That's when anxiety takes over. That's when stress starts stacking on your shoulders like bricks, one after another, until you can't even remember what rest feels like. You're praying, but you're still panicking. You're reading scripture, but you're still spiraling. Why? Because deep down, you're still trying to be the answer instead of trusting the answer. God never asked you to fix everything. He didn't ask you to hold it all together. He never put that pressure on you. You put it on yourself. You decided it was your job to change people. You decided it was your job to open every door, to control every outcome, to map every step. But let me remind you, you are not God. And that's not a rebuke, that's freedom, because when you realize you're out of position, you can correct it. You can step back and say, God, I trust you. I don't have all the answers. I don't see the whole plan, but I believe you do, and I believe you're good. That's not quitting. That's humility. That's obedience. That's rest. You see, exhaustion isn't just physical. It's spiritual. And when your spirit is drained, no amount of sleep can fix that. The only thing that restores you is stepping back into alignment, getting back into the position of trust, of faith, of surrender. You were never meant to run this race alone. You were never meant to bear the weight of everyone else's choices. You were never meant to have all the solutions. Your job is to trust, to obey, to move when he says move, and to rest when he says rest. When you're in position, the right position, you're powerful. Not because of your strength, but because of his. Not because you control everything, but because you're connected to the one who does. So if you're exhausted today, check your position. Have you stepped into a role that belongs to God? Are you trying to play CEO of a life that's not fully yours to manage? Get back in position. Let God be God, and you be faithful, be obedient, be surrendered. You don't need superhuman strength. You just need supernatural trust. Because the truth is, the moment you get back in position is the moment everything starts to change. Not because life gets easier, but because you stop fighting battles that were never yours to fight. You step out of exhaustion and into grace. You can't hustle what only heaven can deliver. That's the truth most of us don't want to hear because we live in a culture that worships the grind. We've been trained to believe that if we just work harder, wake up earlier, sleep less, sacrifice more, then everything we desire will eventually come to us. But that's not how the spiritual world works. There are things in life, the most important things, that don't come through hustle. They come through heaven. There are blessings that are not earned, they're given. There are doors that won't open because you knocked harder. They'll open only when God says it's time. There's peace that doesn't come from your planning, your discipline, or your vision board. It comes from the presence of God. Favor isn't bought with effort. It's released by grace. You can hustle your way into money. You can grind your way into a job. You can push and network your way into opportunities. But you can't hustle your way into healing. You can't grind your way into true joy. You can't fast, rack divine timing. What's spiritual can't be forced through human effort. That doesn't mean you don't work. Don't get it twisted. Hard work is still part of the process, but it's not the source of the promise. It's not about sitting back and doing nothing. It's about knowing that your hustle is supposed to be in *** partnership *** with God, not in *** place *** of him. When you put hustle over heaven, you stop listening. You start pushing doors open that God closed for your protection. You start chasing things you were never supposed to have in the first place. The danger is that hustle becomes your idol, the grind becomes your God, and suddenly your worth is tied to your productivity. You start measuring your value by how much you do, how much you make, how far you've come, and when the results don't show up fast enough, you get frustrated, you question yourself, you question God. You wonder why it's not working even though you're doing all the right things. But here's the problem. The blessing you're after doesn't operate on your timeline. It doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to *** position, ***. Are you aligned? Are you surrendered? Are you available? You can't hustle your way into what requires *** his hand ***. There are seasons where the more you work, the more exhausted you'll feel because you're trying to force something spiritual through flesh level effort, and flesh will always fall short when it comes to fulfilling faith. God didn't ask you to hustle harder, he asked you to trust deeper. Think about it. What if the thing you're chasing is already yours, but you can't receive it because your hustle has turned into pride? What if God is holding back not to punish you, but to protect you because you're not ready yet, and the blessing would crush you if it came too soon? Some breakthroughs come when you put the laptop down. Some peace shows up when you stop strategizing and start surrendering. Some clarity comes when you stop grinding and start listening. There's a difference between striving and following. Hustle says, I've got this. Faith says, God, lead me. The grind can take you far, but only God can take you where you're destined to be. If hustle was enough, you wouldn't feel so empty. If effort alone could do it, you'd be there by now. But you're not, because heaven is waiting on something different. Heaven is waiting on *** your heart ***, not just your hands. So take a moment to pause, reevaluate your motives, ask yourself, am I trying to hustle into something that only God can give me? Am I trying to earn what I should be receiving? Am I grinding so hard that I've forgotten who the source really is? Let the hustle rest. Let heaven move. Do your part, but let God be God. Because the moment you stop trying to hustle the holy is the moment heaven starts to work on your behalf. And that's when the real breakthrough comes, not by might, not by power, but by his Spirit. God doesn't need your control, he wants your surrender. That's where most of us miss it. We think that if we can just stay on top of everything, if we plan every step, control every outcome, and make sure nothing goes wrong, then somehow we'll avoid pain, we'll guarantee success, and we'll stay safe. But that mindset is rooted in fear, not faith. Control feels like safety, but it's a false sense of security. What God is actually asking for is something far more powerful than control. He's asking for surrender. Control is about holding tightly. Surrender is about letting go. And that's scary for people who have been through trauma, disappointment, or failure. When life has knocked you down enough times, the instinct is to tighten your grip on everything: your future, your relationships, your job, your image. You start micromanaging life because you're afraid that if you don't, everything will fall apart. But in trying to hold it all together, you're falling apart yourself. You were never created to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. That's not strength, that's suffocation. You're not built for that. That role belongs to God, and the more you try to control what only He can manage, the more anxious, tired, and spiritually disconnected you become. It doesn't matter how smart you are, how disciplined you are, or how much experience you have. Control will eventually wear you down because it's not your assignment. God is not impressed by your control. He's moved by your trust. He's not asking you to figure everything out. He's asking you to trust that He already has. You see, control puts the burden on you. Surrender places the burden at His feet. When you surrender, you're saying, God, I don't know how this will turn out, but I trust that you do. I don't have the plan, but I believe you have a purpose. Surrender isn't weakness, it's power in its purest form. It takes more courage to trust God with the unknown than it does to force a fake version of certainty. It takes faith to release your grip and let Him lead. And when you finally surrender, you open the door to peace, clarity, and divine movement. But surrender doesn't mean you stop working. It doesn't mean you sit on the couch and wait for life to happen. It means you work, but you don't worry. You move, but you don't manipulate. You pray, and then you rest. You prepare, but you don't panic. That's the rhythm of surrender, doing your part and trusting God with the rest. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in your life won't come from effort. They'll come from surrender. You'll stop forcing doors open and watch God open the right ones. You'll stop begging people to stay and let God bring the right ones in. You'll stop carrying the pressure of making it all happen and start experiencing the peace of knowing it's already in motion, not by your strength, but by His will. There's a reason the Bible says, be still and know that I am God, and not be busy and prove that you're worthy. Stillness is not laziness, it's trust. It's saying, I know who's in charge and it's not me. That stillness is where God speaks. That surrender is where God moves. Some of you are crying out for a miracle, but God is waiting for your surrender. He's not ignoring you. He's waiting for you to put down your plans and pick up His purpose. You've prayed about it, now release it. You've worked hard, now trust hard. You've carried it long enough, lay it down. So today, stop clinging to control and start practicing surrender. Let go of the need to have it all figured out. Let go of the pressure to make it happen. Let go of the fear that if you're not in control, everything will collapse. The truth is, it's not up to you, and it never was, and that's good news, because the moment you surrender is the moment you step into peace, into alignment, into divine power. Not your will, His, not your plan. His purpose, not your timeline, His timing. And that's where real freedom begins. Human strength has limb, its divine power does not. That's a lesson most of us learn the hard way. We run ourselves into the ground trying to be everything for everyone, trying to hold it all together, and trying to make progress by pure willpower. We convince ourselves that if we just push a little harder, grind a little longer, and stay up a little later, we'll break through. But what we don't realize is that we're depending on a power source that was never meant to carry the full weight of life our own. Your strength, as impressive as it may be, has an expiration date. Your energy is finite. Your endurance is limited. Your willpower will eventually hit a wall. That's not weakness, that's reality. And if you live like you're invincible, life will remind you that you're not. Burnout isn't just a result of overworking, it's often a sign that you've been relying on the wrong source for too long. See, when you try to live life solely on your human strength, you may be able to survive, but you won't thrive. You'll manage to get through some days, but not with peace. You'll accomplish tasks, but you'll feel drained. You might even look successful on the outside, but inside you're struggling to keep it together. That's because human strength alone is never enough to carry a divine calling. God never intended for you to live life apart from His power. He designed you to walk in partnership with Him. He knew your strength would have limits, which is why He offers you access to His power that doesn't fade, doesn't run out, and doesn't break under pressure. It's a power that sustains you when life gets heavy. A power that lifts you when your own legs give out. A power that carries you when you feel like you can't go any further. Think about how many times you've said, I'm tired, or I can't do this anymore. That's your limit speaking. That's the point where your strength ends and where God's begins. But too often, instead of leaning into his power, we try to push past our breaking point, hoping our own strength will somehow stretch further than it's meant to. And when it doesn't, we blame ourselves for being weak. But it's not weakness, it's misplaced reliance. Even Jesus, walking in full humanity, didn't operate apart from the Father. He prayed, he withdrew. He rested. Why? Because he was modeling what it means to be dependent on divine strength. If Jesus, the Son of God, didn't try to live in isolation from the Father's power, what makes us think we can? There's something freeing about admitting you're not strong enough. The world tells you to always be strong, but heaven gives you permission to admit when you're not. That's where grace shows up. The Apostle Paul said, "When I am weak, then I am strong." Why? Because that's when God's power steps in. That's when the Spirit takes over. That's when you stop forcing and start flowing. God's strength doesn't replace your effort, it amplifies it. It doesn't mean you stop showing up. It means you show up differently with less anxiety, less fear, less pressure, and more peace, more clarity, more resilience. You still work, but now you're working from a place of connection, not depletion. The truth is, there are storms you'll face that your human strength can't survive. There are battles you'll fight that your logic can't win. There are burdens you'll carry that your emotions can't hold. And in those moments, if you're not tapped into divine power, you'll break. But when you're walking in God's strength, you don't just survive, you overcome. So if you're feeling drained, maybe it's not because you're doing too much, maybe it's because you're doing it without him. You weren't made to run on empty. You were made to run on faith, to run on grace, to run on power that comes from above. You're not failing because you're tired. You're tired because you've been trying to do supernatural things with natural strength. But you don't have to live like that anymore. Lay down your pride. Admit your limit. Invite God in, because his strength never runs out. His power never quits. And the moment you stop depending on yourself and start leaning on him is the moment you step into a life you don't have to carry alone. Peace doesn't come from solving everything, it comes from trusting through anything. That's the truth most of us struggle to accept, because we've been conditioned to believe that peace is the result of everything going right. We think that if we can just fix the problems, resolve the conflicts, pay the bills, heal the relationship, or secure the future, then we'll finally feel calm. But real peace isn't found on the other side of control, it's found in the middle of chaos, when you choose to trust God anyway. You don't need peace when everything's perfect. You need peace when the storm is raging, when the diagnosis is uncertain, when the future is unclear, when the relationship is on the rocks, when the money is tight, when your plan falls apart. That's when peace matters, and that kind of peace, unshakable, immovable, supernatural peace, doesn't come from circumstances. It comes from knowing who holds the circumstances. Most of us are chasing peace like it's a destination. We say things like, "I'll feel better when this is over. I'll be okay once this gets fixed. I'll relax when it's all under control." But what if it never gets fixed? What if the breakthrough takes longer than expected? What if the control you're looking for never comes? Does that mean you're doomed to live in anxiety forever? Not if your peace is built on something deeper than conditions. Peace is not the absence of problems. It's the presence of trust. That's why Jesus could sleep in a storm. The disciples were panicking, afraid for their lives, because the waves were crashing and the boat was filling with water. But Jesus was resting. He wasn't pretending the storm wasn't real. He just wasn't ruled by it. Why? Because he trusted the Father. He knew who he was. He knew where his help came from. We often ask God to calm the storm around us, but God is more interested in calming the storm within us. And that inner peace only comes when we shift our focus from the problem to the provider. When you fix your eyes on the situation, you feel stress. When you fix your eyes on the Savior, you find peace. The problem might still exist, but it doesn't control you anymore. That's what trust does. It changes your posture before the outcome ever changes. Some of us are exhausted because we're living like peace is a reward we have to earn. We think if we pray enough, plan enough, work enough, then maybe God will grant us peace. But peace is not a prize, it's a promise. Jesus said, "My peace I give to you, not my peace I sell to you, or my peace you have to achieve." It's a gift, and the only way to receive it is to release control and trust. That doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you ignore problems or avoid responsibility. It means you learn how to face life's uncertainties without letting them consume you. It means you pray hard, plan wisely, and then rest deeply in the knowledge that God is still in control even when you're not. Sometimes peace looks like walking into the same situation, but with a different spirit. Nothing outside you has changed, but everything inside you has shifted. The anxiety is gone, not because the danger disappeared, but because your faith grew bigger than your fear. That's the power of trusting through anything. It lifts the weight off your shoulders and places it into God's hands. So stop waiting for peace to arrive when life calms down. Choose it now. Choose it in the uncertainty. Choose it in the waiting. Choose it in the pain. Because when your peace is anchored in trust, nothing can take it from you. Not loss, not delay, not fear, not failure. You can't always change your situation, but you can always choose your source. And when your source is God, peace isn't fragile, it's firm. It doesn't crack under pressure. It stands in the storm, it breathes in the chaos, it sings in the night. You don't need to fix everything to have peace. You just need to trust the one who can. And when you trust through anything, you gain the kind of peace that surpasses all understanding, the kind that protects your heart, guards your mind, and keeps you steady when life tries to shake you. That's not a peace the world gives. That's a peace only heaven can. Rest isn't a reward for finishing, it's a requirement for continuing. That goes against the mind that so many of us live with every day. We've been taught to rest only after we've earned it, after we've completed the task, crushed the goal, or pushed ourselves to the edge. We wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. We brag about burning the candle at both ends. We live on caffeine, crash late, and wake up early, all in the name of productivity, but what we call drive, God sometimes calls disobedience. You weren't created to run non-stop. You weren't built to be in motion 24/7. Even God, the creator of the universe, worked for 6 days and then rested, not because he needed to, but to show us how essential rest is to the rhythm of life. Yet here we are, acting like rest is optional. Like it's something we'll get around to eventually. But rest isn't something you squeeze in after the hustle. It's something you build your life around, because without it, you break. That's the irony. We think rest slows us down, but in reality, rest is what helps us keep going. You might be grinding, but are you growing? You might be producing, but are you peaceful? You might be getting things done, but are you whole while doing it? Without rest, you may continue moving, but you're not truly living, you're surviving. And God didn't create you to survive your life. He created you to live it with fullness, freedom, and purpose, and that requires rest. Rest isn't laziness, it's obedience, it's wisdom, it's protection, it's trust. When you rest, you're telling God, I trust you enough to stop. That takes faith to pause when the world says keep going. To be still when culture says hustle harder. To put the laptop down, to stop answering emails, to take a breath, and trust that your life doesn't fall apart when you're not in constant motion. Some of us are tired not just in our bodies, but in our souls. We're emotionally and spiritually depleted. We're doing everything right on the outside, but on the inside, we're empty. That's because we've confused motion with meaning. We've confused exhaustion with excellence. But God doesn't measure your worth by how worn out you are. He's not impressed with burnout. He's not calling you to die for your schedule. He's calling you to live in rhythm with his spirit, and that rhythm includes rest. Jesus understood this deeply. He was on a mission to save the world, yet he constantly withdrew. He walked away from the crowds, he paused, he prayed, he rested. If the Son of God needed rest, why do we act like we don't? Rest is not a break from your calling, it's part of your calling. It's how you recharge your purpose. It's how you realign your heart. It's how you remember who the source really is. Without rest, you start to lose perspective. You become irritable, anxious, and overwhelmed. You start snapping at people you love, doubting your purpose, and forgetting your why. That's not a sign you need to quit. That's a sign you need to rest. Your spirit needs time to breathe. Your mind needs space to process. Your soul needs silence to hear God again. And that doesn't happen when you're running nonstop. Rest is how you recover. It's how you stay healthy in a world that tells you to wear yourself out. It's not about being lazy or passive. It's about being intentional, about honoring your limits, about respecting the way God designed your body and soul to function. When you rest, you make room for healing, clarity, creativity, and peace. So stop waiting until you've earned rest. You don't earn what God has already commanded. You rest not because everything is done, but because He is still in control when you stop. You rest not because you're finished, but because you were never meant to carry the whole load alone. You may be strong, but you're not limitless. You may be driven, but you're still human. And your effectiveness doesn't come from running until you collapse. It comes from trusting God enough to pause, recharge, and return with renewed strength. Rest isn't weakness. Rest is worship. It's resistance against a world that idolizes burnout. And it's the foundation that keeps you grounded, present, and aligned with God's pace. Because at the end of the day, your calling isn't just about how far you can go. It's about how well you can walk with Him along the way. And that walk always includes rest.